Rick has called ICE agents Gestapo and Nazis. Rick, do you think they're the Gestapo and the Nazis?
Yes.
Because you actually said that.
They are an American Gestapo
you're
at this point.
despicable.
They are
You're despicable.
They are unconstrained by law. They are unconstrained by the rights of Americans.
Not true.
They are engaged in a consistent pattern of abuse of the civil and constitutional rights of American citizens, Hal. I get that you are part of a cult that cannot disagree with Donald Trump.
That's the Gestapo?
They are in fact the American equivalent of the Gestapo.
Now, I want to welcome to Drive Rick Wilson, who is a former Republican strategist and now is founder of the Lincoln Project, which is no great fan of Donald Trump. Rick Wilson, hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi, and we are also joined by Hal Lambert, who is a Republican donor, major donor, also part of President Trump's inaugural committee. Hello to you, Hal.
Hello.
Hi. So you both join me, grateful for that, and ready to share your thoughts and discuss this matter through together. Rick Wilson, can I come to you first? I started off by talking about, talk in the United States of the tension we see vividly illustrated in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, growing, flaring, becoming a threat to the republic itself. Is that over the top? Is that a wild exaggeration?
I don't believe it is at all. I mean, we are seeing a consistent pattern of violations of the civil rights of American citizens. The First, the Second, the Fourth, the Fifth, the 10th, the 14th Amendments are routinely being ignored by ICE and DHS as they carry out their mission in Minneapolis, which has shifted from we're there to address the Somali fraud problem to now it seems to be mostly dedicated to suppressing the protesters against ISIS's presence there. I think the Republic is very strained right now. We seem to be in a place where we're outside the rule of law. We had Greg Bovino, the ground commander of ICE, or Border Patrol in Minneapolis, say that if you call us names, you're going to have consequences. This is a moment where the American Republic is being tattered by a contemptuous government that believes that the rights of American citizens stop when the political preferences of Stephen Miller begin.
Hal Lambert, what do you say to that?
Well, what I would say is this. This is an insurrectionist movement. It's in one city and one state. ICE is all over the country in many cities. It's not happening in other cities. It's happening in Minnesota and Minneapolis specifically because the mayor there and the governor there were helping orchestrate it. And, when you say these are protesters and the reporting that was on the ground there was so one-sided that you guys just ran through. The protesters not standing on the sidewalk, okay? They are in the middle of the street trying to block ICE agents. This particular shooting, if we want to look at it specifically, there were people in the street. The ICE officer was pushing them out of the street. This particular guy that was killed came over, put his hands on the ICE officer. He then got pepper sprayed and was asked to get on the ground and started wrestling with the ICE agents. He was carrying a gun. One of the agents saw the gun in the back of his pants, took the gun away from him. As the ICE officer was walking off with the gun, it went off because it's a 6-hour. It's not it's a gun that's known to go off very easily. You have people yelling "gun, gun." You have a shot fired. The officers don't know who shot the to the ground. It was actually one of their own officers with the gun from the assailant, and they shot him. And it's tragic that it happened, but you can't carry a gun like that and go over and start interfering with the arrests of other people, put your hands on federal officers, and then expect that things are going to turn out well. Could it have turned out differently? It could have, and it would have been better if it had. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying when you look at the evidence and you look at what happened, the officers weren't fearful of their life. A gun had gone off from behind. They didn't know who shot it. They thought he still had a gun, and they shot him.
Okay.
And so, this is what's going on in the streets because this guy is out there because the mayor and the governor are talking this up and calling them Nazis and calling these people that are federal agents Gestapo. This is not happening in other cities. Okay, this is happening in Minneapolis.
Okay, Hal, I'm obviously going to bring Rick back in on what you said, but just on a point of fact, that's the first claim that I've heard that the gun that was possessed by the man who was shot dead went off accidentally while in the possession of one of the ICE officers. I've seen that suggested as a possibility. You're telling me that it's a fact. I'm not aware of any evidence at all that it is a fact and that is what led to the volley of shots that killed this man.
Let me correct something. If I may,
Rick, if you bear with us, Rick, for one moment, do let Hal come back on that.
I watched a video this morning that showed that from a different angle from the main video that has been out there. You can see the gun. The officer had it. It does hit, the bullet hits the ground. And you hear people saying, gun, gun, gun. You have officers on the guy at the time. I believe they felt that that the gun went off possibly at them, and they shot him. And again, it's tragic, but this was all in the street. Okay, this wasn't on the sidewalk. This is in the street.
Yeah. But even on your account, Hal, he was shot 5 times while not posing the threat, anything remotely resembling the threat and the danger that was set up by Kirsty Noem in her statement within minutes of the incident, and which has been pretty much, I suggest, entirely disproved and discredited.
Well, what's been disproved and discredited? I mean, was he shot? I mean, I don't know how many officers fired at him. But, you know, they're shooting, and if there were 3 of them that shot at him, it's very possible there could have been 5 shots at him. So I'm just saying he wasn't complying. He was still trying to stand up. They're trying to tell him to get on the ground. Look, if I have a gun, and I believe in gun ownership. I'm a Texan. We all carry guns here. You don't go over and interfere with law enforcement with a weapon on you, and then when they tell you to get on the ground, you fight them. Like, what is going on here?
Okay, I want to move on from this precise incident, but a word on that, Rick Wilson.
Let me be very clear about something. This assertion that that his SIG P320 went off randomly. First off, Hal, let's be clear about something. Since I think I want to make very clear on something. The P320, a very few early models of the P320 had that problem. This is a P320X Legion model. It does not have that problem. I should know because I own 2 of them. Secondly, even if that gun had gone off, they shot him 5 times in the back. He was holding a cell phone in his hand. All of the officers that were mobbing him saw him holding one hand up and holding the cell phone in the other hand as they approached him. There was no consideration that he had a gun in his hand. Yes, we certainly do know what they saw. How? There's multiple angles of the video. I'm sorry you live in a reality bubble where you believe that in order to placate Donald Trump, you can tell the lie that everyone in America's eyes have seen very clearly.
I'm sorry,
he was murdered in the street. He was murdered in the street, Hal, by ICE officers who were out of control, who were undertrained, who lacked the discipline and the training to be anywhere in American cities. They lacked the training and the temperament to engage with anyone, much less American citizens. And the fact of the matter is, you are making up a set of facts, as Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller did, calling him a domestic terrorist. Was he a domestic terrorist?
I didn't say that.
Hal,
I said.
Did you? But do you agree with them? Do you agree? He's not an insurrectionist. He's an American citizen exercising his First Amendment rights. And the Second Amendment rights are not. Yeah. He's had a legal right to carry.
Rick and Hal, if you forgive me.
Wait a minute.
Forgive me, Hal. I'm going to intervene, Hal, for a second. If you would, Hal, allow me, if you would. I'm so interested in what you are both saying, but our audience are going to miss all of it if you keep on talking over each other in this way. We hear you coming from diametrically opposite positions, as we have seen, well, since the incident, and we get a very clear picture of where you stand now if we needed clarifying on that. Hal, I want to come back to you and pick up a point, because you mentioned the idea of insurrection. Now, you'll have seen the Homeland Security Secretary, Kirsty Noem. She defended the shooting of Alex Pretti, the intensive care nurse, very soon after it happened. She claimed that he wanted to shoot dead ICE agents. She called him a domestic terrorist. There is actually 0 evidence of any such thing. She said he was brandishing a gun, and the video shows that's simply not true. How is it possible to justify statements like that?
Well, you know what? You're going to ask me to agree with something that somebody else said.
Well, then tell me you don't agree. I'm asking for your view.
Wait a minute. Rick has called ICE agents Gestapo and Nazis. Rick, do you think they're the Gestapo and the Nazis?
Yes.
Because you actually said that.
They are an American Gestapo
you're
at this point.
Despicable.
They are unconstrained.
You're despicable.
They are unconstrained by law. They are unconstrained by the rights of Americans.
Not true.
They are engaged in a consistent pattern of abuse of the civil and constitutional rights of American citizens, Hal. I get that you are part of a cult that cannot disagree with Donald Trump.
That's the Gestapo?
They are in fact the American equivalent of the Gestapo. Do they have a little SS lightning bolt on their uniforms? No.
Okay, you'll forgive me, gentlemen. You'll forgive me both. You'll forgive me both if I'm reluctant to allow this to become simply a shouting match. I want to put 1 or 2 points in the limited time that we have. Now, let me come to you then, Rick, with this question. It is argued, isn't it, from the other side of this deep, deep divide, that the law enforcement authorities in Minneapolis and in Minnesota simply need to cooperate with these officers as they execute their duties, seeking to deport those who have no right to be in the United States. That is the assertion. Rick, what do you say?
Look, I believe that there has been cooperation in most states, and including a lot of cooperation in Minnesota with these officers. There is less cooperation when they are trying to get people who are not in a criminal status out of this. There's no constituency in America to keep people who are murderers, who are illegal aliens here. None whatsoever. This is a country, however, that the role of ICE has not, in Minnesota in particular, served to be something to try to deport these illegals. They're trying to constrain America's right to protest them. There are people that disagree with the president's policies. There are people who are held under state law, and this is where the 10th Amendment violations by ICE and DHS are coming into this, that are causing some tension here. I believe that this is a moment where the militarization of ICE in our cities, they're not there as law enforcement. They are there in a political context for this president.
Okay.
They are there in a context that is not amenable to cooperating with the locals because they don't want to cooperate in either direction.
Okay, Hal Lambert, your thoughts?
It seems to be working in other cities and other states. It's Minneapolis is the problem. And there's massive corruption there. There's massive fraud in the state. We've already seen that. And, you know, it's just, I feel that the reporting is so one-sided on this issue. No one can see any other side of it. As an example earlier, you said the mother came up and wanted the child that they were taking away. They don't know it's the mother. They're just supposed to hand it to a woman who walks up to the car. I mean, guys, you have to think about this in real world situations. You don't just hand children off because a woman walked up to the car and said, that's my kid. Okay, so let's be fair about the reporting. You also
shoot a guy in the back 5 times.
Okay, Hal Lambert,
fair about the
I have to draw a line here, and I hope you recognise I'm trying to give you, Hal, as well as Rick, a fair crack of the whip here and to have your say. I want to finish with a simple question, because you did, as we say, mention insurrection. Do you conceive, Hal, that it might be possible to justify the use of the Insurrection Act in the United States, putting troops on the streets under that piece of legislation? I see no clear evidence of uncontrollable widespread disorder from what I have seen out of the United States. And lastly, is it conceivable, as some argue, remarkably, that midterm elections could be halted using that power? How?
Well, I don't see the midterm elections being halted, but you just said at the beginning of the show that this is the brink of the Civil War. So it sounds like there's insurrection going on. This was used in the 50s and the 60s during desegregation, when Democrats back then didn't want to integrate schools. And Eisenhower and Kennedy, a Democrat and a Republican, had to put troops into southern states to enforce mob rule that was being allowed by both the governor and the mayor of these cities. And mobs were out there doing very similar things to what's happening right now in Minneapolis.
Okay, I do have to leave it there. We have run out of time. Hal Lambert and Rick Wilson, thank you for joining me on the program this afternoon.